My dear brother, my precious sister in Christ, there are moments in life when you open your wallet and there's nothing there, nothing. And the problem isn't just the money, it's the silence that comes with it. It's the fear, it's the shame. It's that question nobody likes to say out loud. What now? Maybe today you're living exactly this. The bills piling up. The month's still far from over. Your head heavy, your heart tired, and you try to keep the faith, but you confess in silence. It's hard. And it's precisely in these moments that the lives of those who walk before us in faith become dangerous, because they confront us. There's a false image many people have of the faithful, as if they live protected from reality, as if nothing ever ran out. But those who truly walked with God knew real scarcity. The kind that tightens your stomach, the kind that steals your sleep, the kind that makes a human being feel small. There were days when they didn't have resources even for the basics. And yet desperate people came to them. Fathers without work, mothers without food, men humiliated by need. They arrived hoping for a quick solution. Money, concrete help, and many times there was nothing to give, nothing. And yet nobody left there empty. Because when there was no money, they offered something rarer, something almost nobody knows how to offer. Absolute trust in God. They understood something that hurts to accept. Your wallet empties, but God's hand never. There are accounts of people who came almost in despair. They spoke fast. They cried. They explained everything as if they needed to convince heaven of their own pain. And in silence they were listened to. Sometimes eyes were closed. Sometimes there was only a sigh. And then came something simple, almost disappointing for those who wanted an immediate miracle. 2 words. 2 words that don't sound powerful to those who live by the world's logic, but that carry immense spiritual weight. These 2 words were repeated in the darkest moments, when physical pain was unbearable, when accusations crushed, when the future seemed closed, and these words were something most people never expect. Something that sounds too simple, too small for the size of the problem. But before I tell you what they are, I need you to understand why they mattered so much. Because if you don't understand the why, the words themselves won't mean anything. They'll just be 2 more religious phrases you hear and forget. And that would be a tragedy, because these 2 words saved lives, changed destinies, opened impossible doors, not because they're magic, but because they connect us to the only source that never runs dry. You're going through financial difficulties right now. If you need intercession in your life, write in the comments with faith, Lord, intercede for me. Let your requests be heard. Let your pain be seen. Because those who have gone before us in faith aren't distant figures in history books. They're friends who walk with us through the fire. And they knew fire better than most. Many people ask, but does that even solve anything? And the truth is hard. It doesn't solve things the way the world expects. It's not magic. It's not a formula. It's not a guarantee of immediate money. It's abandonment. It's saying, I don't understand. I don't see a way out, that I won't let go of God's hand. The greatest human mistake is trying to control everything when you've already lost control. And that's exactly what happens when money runs out. We panic, the mind races, the heart hardens, and fear starts giving orders. But fear commands. God doesn't reign. That's why trust is so essential. Not naive trust, but suffered trust. Tested, proven in fire. There's a scene I need you to see clearly. Picture this. A person walks through a door. Their shoes are worn. Their hands shake. They haven't eaten properly in days. But that's not why they're trembling. They're trembling because they don't know how they'll face their children tonight. How do you tell a 5-year-old there's no dinner? How do you explain to innocents that the world can be this cruel? They find themselves in a quiet room. The air is still. They start talking fast. The words tumble over each other. They explain the job they lost, the rent they can't pay, the shame of borrowing from neighbors who had nothing either. Their voice cracks when they mention a loved one's face this morning. That look of quiet desperation they tried to hide. And the one listening just listens, eyes half closed, breathing slow. Some people might think this is cold, distant even. But those who understand know prayer is happening while you speak. Your pain is being carried before you even finish describing it. The person stops talking, waiting, hoping for a miracle, for money to appear, for a solution they can hold in their hands. And then the response comes, eyes open. A look of gentleness that somehow makes the silence bearable. And the words are simple. Only this. Go home. Trust in God. That's it. Nothing more. The person stands there frozen. You can see it in accounts from those who witness such moments. The confusion on faces. They came for bread and they got what sounded like empty words. But here's what was known that the desperate person couldn't see yet. God was already moving. The answer was already in motion, not in the room where they stood, but in the invisible places where heaven touches earth. Now let me tell you what those two words were. The ones whispered in the darkest moments, when bodies felt like they were being torn apart. The ones repeated when silence came from every direction. The ones clung to when doubt screamed louder than faith. Jesus, I trust. That's it. Just 3 syllables that contain everything. And I know what you're thinking. That's too simple. That can't be enough. I need something bigger. But that's exactly the point. It's not a pretty phrase you say when everything's fine. It's what you say when you have nothing left to hold on to. It's the last gasp before you go under. It's not a prayer of triumph. It's a prayer of survival. When you say, Jesus, I trust, you're not pretending the pain doesn't exist. You're not denying the scarcity. You're not putting on a spiritual mask. You're admitting, I can't fix this. I can't see how this ends well, but you can. That's the difference between fake faith and real faith. Fake faith says everything's fine. God's got this while smiling through gritted teeth. Real faith says nothing's fine. I'm terrified, but I'm not letting go. Trust isn't the absence of fear. It's the refusal to let fear become your God. Because here's what happens when we're broke, when we're desperate, when we're at the end. We start worshiping the problem. We wake up thinking about it. We go to sleep thinking about it. It's the first thing in the morning and the last thing at night. The problem becomes bigger than God. And that's when we're lost. Not because God abandoned us, but because we can't see him anymore through the wall of fear we've built. Jesus, I trust, is the wrecking ball. It's small. It's simple. But it breaks through. And sometimes the breakthrough isn't immediate. Sometimes you say it today and nothing changes tomorrow, but something changes in you. The grip of panic loosens just a little. The tunnel vision clears just enough to see one step forward. And that's how God works most of the time. Not in explosions, but in whispers. Not in spectacle, but in the small opening that becomes a door. Picture someone in their room at 3 a.m. The floor is cold beneath their knees. Their heart is heavy. Every breath hurts. And in their hands, beads worn smooth from years of use. Fingers move from one to the next. Lips barely move, but the words are there. Some nights they can barely hold on. But they don't stop, even when their voice cracks, even when the pain makes them gasp between prayers. Because this wasn't just devotion. It was a lifeline, a weapon. The thing held onto when everything else fell away. Friends, I know walking this path alone is hard. If these stories are touching your heart, if you're hungry to discover the greatest weapon you can use every single day, I've prepared something special for you. It's called the power of prayer with those who have gone before us in faith. Miracles, protection, and divine graces. This spiritual treasure is going to help you pray with deeper devotion and understanding. You'll discover the miracles and testimonies of those who've already experienced its power. You'll learn impactful teachings and phrases about prayer. The ones actually lived by when everything seemed impossible. You'll receive a 30-day prayer guide with daily intentions to strengthen your faith one day at a time. And you'll access special prayers for protection, healing, and liberation. The kind recommended to people who came in desperate need. Prayer was the great weapon, the thing held onto when there was nothing else. And today can be yours too. Don't miss this opportunity to strengthen your spiritual life with material that's already helped thousands of people walk through their own dark valleys. To download it, just click the link pinned in the comments below. Now, let me tell you what happened to that desperate person who left feeling confused and even a little angry. They walked out feeling like they'd been dismissed, like their pain didn't matter, like God himself had turned away. They walked home slowly, each step heavier than the last. The sun was setting, and in a few hours they'd have to face their family and have nothing to give. The thought of it made their jaw tighten, fists clenched. They were angry at the one who sent them away with empty words. Angry at God. Angry at themselves for believing that faith could put food on the table. But when they turned the corner to their street, they saw something strange. A neighbor standing outside their door. Not just any neighbor. Someone they barely spoke to. Someone who'd never helped before. Never even offered. The kind of neighbor you nod at in the morning and forget by noon. The person was holding something. Bags. Several bags. And as they got closer, their hearts started pounding for a different reason. Now the neighbor looked almost embarrassed, shifted their weight from foot to foot, and said something that still gives people chills when they hear this story. I don't know why, but today I felt like I needed to help you. Inside those bags, bread, pasta, vegetables, meat. enough food for a week, and in an envelope folded neatly. Money enough to cover the rent that month. They stood there unable to speak, anger crumbling, pride breaking. And all they could do was cry. The neighbor kept saying, "I'm sorry I didn't come sooner. I woke up this morning and couldn't stop thinking about your family. Couldn't stop thinking." That's how God works. He doesn't announce himself with trumpets. He plants a thought in someone's mind, a small, persistent nudge that won't go away until they act on it. And that neighbor had no idea they were an answer to prayer. They probably thought it was just their own kindness. But those who understand know, when people later told these stories, there was never surprise. Just a slow nod and something like, "See, God doesn't forget." Because here's the truth that changes everything. When someone truly trusts, God moves heaven and earth through the most unexpected channels. He doesn't need your plan. He doesn't need your understanding. He just needs your yes. Your Jesus, I trust, even when you can't see 1 inch in front of you. And this is where it gets uncomfortable for a lot of people, because we want to know how. We want to see the plan. We want God to explain himself before we surrender. But there's a teaching that sounds almost harsh at first. When money runs out, God is watching your heart. Not to punish you, but to purify you. The lack reveals where your security was really placed. If it was in money, the ground disappears and you fall apart. If it was in God, the pain exists, but your soul stays standing. This doesn't mean poverty is good. This doesn't mean God wants you to suffer. It means that sometimes the only way we learn where our foundation is when everything else gets shaken. Material poverty hurts, but spiritual poverty kills. And what that means is this: you can be broke and still be rich in faith. Or you can have everything and be spiritually bankrupt. Both exist. Rich people can be destroyed inside, and poor people can radiate peace. The difference is never in the bank account. It is in who you are holding on to when everything else falls away. That's why returning to sincere prayer is so essential. Because often life falls into disorder when the soul has already been disordered for a long time. Not because God punishes with poverty, that's not how he works. But because when we drift from the source, we lose connection to the current that sustains everything. We start making decisions from fear instead of wisdom. We grab at things that can't hold us. We trust in what fails. And there's a question worth asking. When did you last really talk to God? Not just ask him for things, because there's a difference between praying at God and praying with God. One is a transaction. The other is a relationship. And relationships survive storms. Transactions don't. There's also something powerful about regular, faithful prayer, even when your head is full, even when your heart is tight, even when you don't feel anything. Maybe especially then. Those who persist in prayer find that help comes in ways they never expected, not always as a spectacular miracle, sometimes just as a door that opens. A person who appears, an opportunity you didn't see coming, a sudden shift in circumstances that can't be explained by logic alone. There's something practical anyone can do starting right now. When you don't have money, don't stop praying. Don't stop acting with honesty. Don't stop doing good. Because even in scarcity, generosity is still possible. You might not be able to give money, but you can give time. You can give presence. You can give a listening ear to someone else who's struggling. And here's the mystery. Generosity moves heaven. It breaks the spiritual blockage that fear creates. When you're broke and you still find a way to help someone else, even in the smallest way, you are telling God, I trust you're going to provide for me so I can still pour out what little I have. That kind of trust doesn't go unnoticed. There are accounts of those who gave away their own food when there was barely enough. Someone would ask, "What will you eat?" And the response would be a smile, and God will send something. And it always did. Not because someone was special and you're not, but because they understood a law that most people never tap into. What you hold tight, you lose. What you release in trust multiplies. It's the same principle taught with the loaves and fishes. The miracle didn't happen by hoarding. It happened by giving away what little there was. Now, I'm not saying give away money you need for rent. I'm not saying be irresponsible. Faith isn't about recklessness, but it is about radical trust. And there's a difference. Recklessness says, I don't need to think. God will fix it. Radical trust says, I'll do everything I can, and then I'll trust God with what I can't control. You work. You plan. You act responsibly. But you don't worship the outcome. You don't make an idol out of security. Because the moment security becomes your God, you've already lost the very thing you're trying to protect. Those who walk closely with God live this every day. They work tirelessly. They build with money they don't have, trusting it will come. And it always does. Not because they're lucky, but because they never let fear make their decisions. And that's the lesson for you today, right now. In whatever financial desert you're walking through, the lesson isn't, don't worry about money. The lesson is, don't let money worry become your master. There's a difference between concern and slavery. Concern says, this is serious. I need to address it. Slavery says, this is everything. I can't think about anything else. One leads to action. The other leads to paralysis. And God can work with action. He can't work with paralysis. So maybe you're sitting there right now and you're tired. Tired of hearing just trust when the bills are real. When the phone won't stop ringing with collection calls. When you've applied to 20 jobs and heard nothing back. When you've done everything right and it still went wrong, I get it. And so did those who walked this path before you. They knew what it's like when trust feels like the hardest thing in the world. When it feels like you're being asked to believe in something invisible while everything visible is falling apart. But here's what I need you to hear. You don't have to feel it for it to work. You don't have to be full of peace and joy when you say, Jesus, I trust. You can say it through gritted teeth. You can say it while crying. You can say it while you're angry, confused, and completely lost. God isn't offended by your weakness. He moves toward it. He's not waiting for you to have perfect faith. He's waiting for you to have honest faith. The kind that says, I don't understand this. I don't like this, but I'm not letting go. That's the faith that moved people through decades of agony. That's the faith that kept them standing when everything seemed to turn against them. That's the faith that built things out of nothing. That's the faith that changed thousands of lives. And it can change yours. Not because the words are magic, but because they connect you to someone who's been waiting to carry what you can't. So here's what I'm asking you to do. If you're facing financial difficulty right now, if money has run out and fear has moved in, I want you to write something in the comments. Write it as a public act of faith. Write it even if you're not sure you believe it yet. Write, Jesus, I trust. And if you want, add your intention, your specific struggle, the thing that's keeping you up at night. Because when you speak it out loud, when you make it public, something shifts, the shame loses its power, the isolation breaks. And you become part of a community of people who are walking through the same fire. You're not alone in this. There are people reading these comments right now who are in the exact same battle. And when they see your faith, even your struggling imperfect faith, it strengthens theirs. That's how the body of Christ works. We carry each other. And if you know someone who's in this place right now, someone who's run out of money and is running out of hope, share this with them. Don't wait. Don't assume they'll be fine. Sometimes 2 words save a soul from complete despair. Sometimes hearing one story is the thing that keeps someone holding on for one more day. And that one day might be the day everything changes. The moment of declaration is complete. The words have been spoken from the depths of your spirit, and the spiritual atmosphere around your finances has been permanently altered. Those 2 words, thank you, spoken not as a polite afterthought, but as a prophetic declaration of faith, have shifted your position from a beggar at the table of lack to a child seated at the table of abundance. You have done something profound in this moment. You have thanked God for provision before seeing it. You have declared His faithfulness over your circumstances. And you have aligned your mouths with the reality of heaven's economy. This is not the end of a prayer, but the beginning of a new financial identity. Now, as you walk away from this moment, you must carry this posture of gratitude with you. Let thank you become the automatic response of your heart to every financial situation. When a bill arrives, say thank you that provision for this is already on its way. When you check your bank account, say thank you that you are my source and my supply is unlimited. When you give, say thank you that I am a conduit of your blessing. This consistent thanksgiving is not denial of your circumstances. It is the enforcement of a higher reality. It keeps the channel of provision open and the flow of abundance moving. Guard your tongue fiercely from this day forward. The words that once spoke lack and limitation have lost their authority over you. You are no longer permitted to say, I can't afford it, or money is tight, or I'll never get out of debt. Those words belong to your old identity. Your new vocabulary is, my God supplies all my needs. Providence is pursuing me, and my cup overflows. Your words are creating your reality. So choose them with wisdom and faith. Remember also that this practice is not a substitute for wise stewardship. diligent work, and faithful giving. The two words activate the spiritual flow, but your actions determine the channels through which that flow moves. Work with excellence, manage your resources wisely, give generously, and let your life be a reflection of the gratitude you profess. Now go and live in the freedom that those two words have unlocked. Money is no longer your master, your worry, or your problem. It is simply a resource flowing through your consecrated hands for God's purposes and your provision. The problem is over. The flow has begun. And your life from this day forward will be a testimony to the power of a grateful heart. You know, trust in God is learned when you have absolutely nothing, no money, no comfort, no clear future. Just a calling you can't escape. And because trust is learned in the nothing, when God later gives everything, resources to build, opportunities to serve, you don't lose yourself. You don't lose God because the foundation was already built in the desert. That's what this season might be for you. Not punishment, not abandonment, but foundation building, the kind that can hold the weight of whatever God wants to build through your life later. And here's the thing, this exists to walk with you through these moments, to remind you of those who survived what you're surviving, to give you tools like faithful prayer, to create a space where faith isn't performance, it's survival. If this kind of content is helping you, if it's keeping your faith alive, I want to invite you to become a part of this mission. When you support this work, you're not just supporting videos, you're supporting a mission to reach people who are desperate, who are searching, who need to know they're not forgotten. Your support helps us create more content like this. It helps us reach more souls. And it makes you part of a community that's committed to keeping the faith alive in a world that's trying to kill it. You'll find the support link right below this video. And I want you to know, every single person who says yes to supporting this mission is helping someone else find hope. Now, before you go, I want to pray a blessing over you. Wherever you are right now, whatever you're facing, I want you to know that you're seen. God sees you, and we see you. You're not invisible. Your struggle isn't meaningless. And the fact that you watch this all the way to the end tells me something about you. You haven't given up. Not completely. And that's enough. That's more than enough. So I pray that the God who fed thousands with a few loaves, the God who provided through ravens, the God who never once forgot his children in the desert, provides for you. I pray that doors you didn't even know existed start opening, that people you never expected start helping, that resources come from places you never imagined. And most of all, I pray that in the waiting, in the not knowing, in the hardest part, you find the strength to keep saying, Jesus, I trust. Even if it's the only prayer you can manage, it's enough. Go in peace, my friend. You're held, you're loved, and you're not walking this road alone.